I've lost traction on this bike more than any bike I have ever owned combined. Any bike I've ridden in 15 years. Well, there's been a development and the reason has become abundantly clear. And it is 100% the fault of this front tire. Now, to clarify, I am not saying it's the fault of Motoz or the GPS tire. I'm saying literally this one right here in this video you're seeing right now. And I'll show you why. I initially noticed something was wrong, that my tubeless wasn't holding air very well. I was losing about 1 to 4 PSI in a week, every week consistently, about 10 to 40 kPa. I would lose 50% over 3 weeks. What I originally did was I took the wheel off, I inspected the tubeless, there was nothing wrong. I checked, there's no bubbles from any spoke, but there must be something wrong because it's not holding air correctly. Instead of just adding air every ride, I threw a tube in it just to be safe. And of course it then held air. But what ended up happening was that I was still sliding a lot. And while I was waiting for my friend to meet up, I was just looking at my tire. If it doesn't show up very well in the video, I'll post some high definition pictures into the video. But if you can see right along here, all those mini cracks on every tread block, that looks like, could it be dry rot? I originally thought I used too much bead wax, but this isn't the side of the tire I took off, so there should be no bead wax. So if I was to look around and see that there's a lot of grayish lightning spots, if I was to see all around the tire that there were things like this that looks like dry rot, if you were to zoom in and see all these little cracks, all these fadings, the fact that it's not holding pressure, the fact that it's losing grip, well, we may have a dry rotted tire. Now, I can already hear you angrily typing at me, that's so irresponsible to not check for dry rot. You should know better, everyone should know better. Dry rotted tires are super dangerous. And by the end of the video, the person saying I would keep using the tire till it's all used up, I don't like crashing. You ride your own ride. Whether it's your own slide, it's up to you. But dry rotted tires are very dangerous. And I'm not the only one that thinks so, as we'll get to. But all the dry rot marks that are happening on this tire, all the issues I'm having, I noticed, oh, it's right here. The maker's date says this was made in the 31st week of 2021. This is the 4th week of 2025. So it's getting close to being a 4-year-old tire. I only bought it just under 5 months ago. So the fact that it's having all of these issues this early is pretty insane. Now, they don't sell a lot of these tires in Japan, so I believe I bought the last one they had in my size, and it's been sitting for quite some time in their storehouse here in Osaka. And that's kind of the problem. So when you have a harder tire, its tread life lasts longer on the road, but its shelf life is shorter. It's easier to become brittle because harder tires naturally have worse traction and worse elasticity than softer tires. And these are relatively hard tires as far as tires go. And the longer it sits without air, the sooner it dry rots. And the more temperature and weather changes you have. Since it was sitting in a warehouse in Osaka, Japan, that means that winters could be -10 Celsius at night, and the summers can be 45 or hotter during the days. So it actually does make pretty good sense that I have all these serious dry rot marks on my tire. They're not insane. It's not like the tire's literally tread falling off, but it's enough that I would say this is directly related to my crash at 80 kilometers an hour, because since then, I'm still sliding on the front. I've got the proper pressure. I check my pressure every ride now, but in dry, sunshiny days of 10 degrees Celsius, it's still sliding. That's not normal even for the worst of tires, unless they're dry rot. Let's just look at the back real quick. I don't know if it'll show up on camera. There's a few little spots, but that actually would make sense that it's against the tread blocks, because I am using this off-road quite extensively, and there's nothing along the inside walls that would look like it could be dry rotted. So I'm not worried about the rear, and the rear was made in the middle of 2024. So it's a 6-month-old tire that I've had for just under 4 months. So I will be keeping the rear and not losing sleep over it. But what do we do about the front? Well, I emailed the seller to say, hey, you sold me a more than 3-year-old tire and here's what's going on. Well, the seller called me about 4 hours after I sent my email. Rather than just a reply by email, they called me sounding deeply concerned and asking, am I okay? What happened? And they said, as a service, because this is not acceptable for a tire that should have lasted you maybe 2-3 years, we would like to send you a free tire. No charge to you whatsoever, we'll ship it to your door. The problem was they don't have any more GPS tires. So they offered me to match the rear, the Adventure tire. But my concern is more on-road performance than off-road performance, because if I fall in the mud, I fall in the mud. If I crash on the street, I think I got lucky last time that it only cost me an entire set of rain gear and a foot peg. But as anyone who's had more than 2 brain cells in their head can tell you, a crash at 80 can easily be very serious. A crash at 40 could be serious in the wrong conditions. So they said, tell you what, remind us the size of your tire. I told them it's a 90-90-21. Okay, we'll send you anything we have. Here's what we've got. And what I picked is, achoo. Oh, excuse me. Oh. The Shinko Adventure 804. As far as why I picked this, I mean, one's the obvious availability, and since I didn't pay for it, price doesn't matter. Though I am hoping to love it because, of course, it's the most affordable tire in the segment, especially here in Japan. We're very close to Korea. But after that immaculate transition, let's just run inside for the finer details. So it's 25 degrees in this room. Both tires have been in here for a good amount of time. The softness in the hand, this used Motoz is not as soft as this new Shinko. This is going to obviously be a significantly better off-road tire. Normally, I would expect Motoz GPS to be the better road tire, but this being softer and this not being dry rotted will obviously make this the better tire. And being a front tire, the excess wear doesn't matter as much because it should still last twice what a rear does. So comparable to the remaining Motoz Adventure on the rear. One reason it is softer for the Shinko, Motoz is a nylon 4-ply tire. Shinko says that it is a 3-ply on the tread, 2-ply on the sidewall, and polyester. Polyester, nylon's usually more rigid than polyester, more structurally sound. Look at motorcycle wear, look at clothing. You get strength out of nylon, you get comfort out of polyester. Yes, I know there's exceptions in different grades. I don't know if this is nylon 6/6 or the most basic nylon. I don't know if this is the most premium polyester or the cheapest, but they are also both tubeless. The other thing I was curious about, in the hand, used Motoz versus brand new Shinko. Shinko definitely weighs less than Motoz. Not much, but again, this is a used tire. This is a brand new tire, so this has maximum tread, this has less. Now is the ultimate question. Was the actual issue with my tubeless setup, or was the issue with the dry rotted tire? The optimist that I sometimes pretend to be says it was the dry rotted tire. So I am going to try to mount this without a tube, and we'll see what happens. But I am also worried that running it for 500 kilometers with a tube could have damaged the tubeless. I don't know that I believe this should have any issues, so let's give it a go tubeless. Right now, tubeless is holding air, but we'll see in 24 hours. This tire was dramatically easier to mount than the Motoz. It was much easier to set the bead, but it's a softer tire, so of course it is. And it is much more rounded. I don't know if you can tell with my daughter's toys in the background, but it is a much rounder tire than Motoz. And balancing it, the balance point ended up being quite similar, but with half the weight of what Motoz needed. It took 30 minutes to balance this front tire. It took me 45 minutes to balance the rear Motoz tire. It took me about 5 minutes to balance this tire. It sounds like I got a bad batch anyways, but just for whatever it's worth. And there's a few of you probably wondering what are my tools and all these random little balancing whatnot. If you go to my Motoz Tractionator Adventure video or my tubeless video, you will see all the tools linked in those descriptions. Well, gee, weren't those details fine? When I was trying to fill it up, I still couldn't fill this up with my mini pump, so I had to run to the gas station. But where we live now, that run would have been 30 minutes carrying a wheel. I just so happened to pass a motorcycle dealership who noticed me carrying it and offered some air. Thank you to that dealership. As for the company giving me this tire, amazing customer service, so I'd love to give them a shout out. But since they did ship a tire that was on the border of dry rot, mistakes can be made, but the comment section is unforgiving because you're obviously perfect and therefore the whole world must be as perfect as you. Can the one worst person ruin it for everyone? Absolutely. But to the company that set me up with this tire, thank you very much. I can't say anything on the tire because I literally just put it on the bike. Comment below if you want me to review how does this tire hold up on the street and off-road. Is it a world apart? Comparing it is not quite fair because I'm comparing it to a dry rotted tire, but this is definitely a more off-road capable bike, and it's gonna be better in the street just because it's not dry rotted, just because it's a softer compound. And the tubeless is holding air right now. I'll check tomorrow. If not, here's the part where I'm putting the tube back in. That part wasn't there? Okay, well then tubeless is working. But thanks for watching, and this has been Dragonite Moto JP. I wonder what my neighbors think of my bike just sitting out here looking like this. Like, they're not bikers, they're not mechanics. But this also isn't the first time that I've done something like this. See you later.